I.S.U.P.K.
You're going to say I'm an African American, or I'm colored, or I'm black. None of those which are an identity. You know being black ain't an identity, right? You know that's not a nation of people. Ask any so-called white person where they come from. They're going to be able to trace their lineage. They're going to say, yeah, my people come from Germany, they come from Switzerland, they come from France, they come from Italy, whatever, right? They know where they come from. They can trace it back. But your identity stops on those slave ships. So much so that you have to go to your oppressor to find out where you're from. There's something wrong with that, black man. There's something wrong with you having to go to your oppressor to see who you are. Read.
Verse 4 continue. Shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee.
The Lord gave us an inheritance. He said you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are Israelites. That's who you are. That's who you are, black man, black woman. You're an Israelite. If anybody tell you some African, tell them to prove it. How are you an African? You don't even look like an African. You don't sound like an African. You don't have African customs. You don't know nobody in Africa. So how the hell is you an African? How the hell everybody was kings in Egypt? I guess all of us had a throne. Everybody was an Egyptian king, huh? Everybody was Nefertiti, I guess. Everybody was Cleopatra. All you Negroes was kings and queens in Egypt. You know there's only one pharaoh in Egypt, right? You know that. You know there's only one. So everybody can't be kings and queens, right? That ain't logical. So now all black people come from Egypt? That don't make no sense. Because even all Africans don't come from Egypt. So how is that possible? How is it possible that black people in America say we all come from Egypt, but even all the Africans don't say they come from Egypt? It don't make no sense. Read.
Verse 4 continue. And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies.
The Bible says you're going to serve your enemies, man. And that's what you do here. You serve your enemies.
That's right.
You serve your enemies in hunger, in thirst, in want of all things. Anything that you want in America, you got to go through Esau to get. The oppressor, the so-called white man. You got to go to him. Black man, you don't own nothing. You don't even own your house. I don't care if you got a mortgage, you don't own it. Because if you don't pay your taxes, your oppressor will come take it from you. That's what happens when you don't have an inheritance. Read.
Verse 4 continue. And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
You didn't know the land of America because you got on slave ships. You didn't know this land. You came over here not speaking the language, not knowing the land, and being destroyed by your enemy. That's why the Bible says you're going to serve a people in a strange land whose tongue you didn't understand. We spoke Hebrew when we came over on those slave ships. We didn't speak English. Read.
Come. Verse 4 continue. In the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger.
You kindled a fire in the Lord's anger, man. You kindled a fire. Guess what, black man? If you sleep with a so-called white person, the Lord is angry. If you smoke weed, the Lord is angry. If you're in a Christian church, the Lord is angry. If you celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day, the Lord is angry. If you celebrate your own birthday, the Lord is angry. The Lord don't want you to use the customs of the so-called white man. He don't. He wants you to follow what he said. Any more on that?
All right. Which shall burn forever.
Meaning the Lord is going to be mad at you until you decide to obey him. You have kindled an anger in the Lord by not disobeying him. Your ancestors made a covenant with your foreparents. You know what that covenant was? That covenant is that you would serve the Lord. And because you refuse to serve the Lord is angry at you, man. The Lord is angry. And black man, guess what? You'll always be destroyed in America. You will always be on the bottom in America. You'll always be a second-class, third-class citizen in America. You will never get to the mountaintop. Black people, you will never have a piece of the American pie. Never, ever will you ever be equal to the so-called white man. Ever. You never will be equal. Ever. There'll never be a time when Martin Luther King's dream comes true. You'll never walk hand in hand with your oppressor. Let me get Deuteronomy 7 and 6. Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 6. There'll never be a time where you join hand in hand with your oppressor. Why? Because your oppressor hates you. The so-called white man hates you. He creates laws to destroy you. Anybody says otherwise is a real good slave. You're a real good slave if you want to be a Christian. There's no way that you should be a Christian. Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 6. The Lord did not set his love upon you. Oh, it's like the wrong one. Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 6. For thou art an holy people.
The Bible says, you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are a holy people. You are Israelites according to the Bible. You are Israelite. What does that mean? You're not a colored. You're not a Negro. You're not an Afro-American. You're not an African-American. You're none of that. You are Israelite. Read.
Come. For thou art holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee.
The Lord thy God, he chose niggas. I know it's tough to believe because you're on the bottom, but he did not choose the so-called white man. He rules right now because you are disobedient to the Lord. But as soon as you start obeying the Lord, this man will be under you. Your oppressor will then become oppressed by you. You understand? Take that from me. You will rule over your oppressor. Right? You will rule your oppressor if you start obeying the Lord. You start obeying the Lord, you're going to rule over your oppressor. Read.
It's a lady with a big nose with boys.
The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself.
He chose you to be a special people. He didn't call you to be niggas in the ghetto. He didn't call you so you could smoke weed. That ain't why the Lord called you. The Lord ain't call you so you can murder one another. Furthermore, the Lord didn't call you to be a Christian. Being a Christian is the last thing you should be. Being a Christian is the most vile and disgusting thing that you could do before the Lord. If you're a Christian, the Lord looks down on you. He's not happy with you at all. Read.
Verse 6 continue. Above all people.
The Lord said you're what?
Above all people.
The Lord said black people are what?
Above all people.
Hispanics are what?
Above all people.
Native Americans are what?
Above all people.
He said that you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are above, not equal to. You're not equal to all people. You shouldn't want to be equal with your oppressor. Why? Why shouldn't you want to be equal to your oppressor? Because the Lord said you are above all people, man. You above all people on the face of the planet. You above the Africans. You above the East Indians. You above the Chinese, the Japanese, the Arabs, the East Indians, you above all of them. If you so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American, you are an Israelite.